Today we're going to talk about an easy tutorial to rank for SEO. It's easy for SEO to feel a little bit like dark magic, doesn't it? All that SEO means in the long run is that you want Google to know about the kind of content you're making so that Google can match the right content with the right searcher at the right time. That's all it really is. Of course, that breaks down into 1,000 different facets. Today, I'm going to talk about one of those specific facets, an SEO strategy called
Tomb Raiding.
Tomb Raiding was invented and coined, as far as I know, by the team at Niche Website Builders.
My name is Mark Miles. I'm co-founder of a company called Niche Website Builders. We're a marketing agency, but very specific kind of marketing agency. So generally we don't work with businesses. We work with individuals, helping them make money from their blogs.
And lucky for you, I had the good fortune of interviewing Mark, their co-founder, about this new technique and how anybody can apply it to their blog.
It's a combination of like competitor research and correlation SEO. I don't know if you're familiar with correlation SEO, but it's tools like, if you're familiar with tools like Surfer, Market Muse and things like that. Okay, so there's some tools that kind of let, basically they will on many of them you have to just select who your competitors are for a certain search term, and it'll tell you kind of roughly kind of the topics that they're talking about and things that probably you should include within your articles if you're going to write an article on that topic, because it's what Google will expect to see. That's what essentially what correlation SEO is. That's at the very kind of highest level. A strategy that we came up with is competitor research and correlation SEO combined.
In short, tomb raiding is a specific, repeatable process. It's a combination of keyword research, which is when you try to find search terms that will do well for your blog, and competitor analysis, which is when you look at all the other blogs that are creeping up behind your shoulder and you're like, who can I take out? I know I said anybody, but actually before I want to go further into the tutorial, I want to take a minute and elaborate who this probably isn't for. So first of all, this is not for you get rich quick people. If you're watching this because you think it's going to be like something you can implement today and get results tomorrow, or you think you can do without doing a lot of work, this isn't for you. I don't think there is any technique that will do that for you, so good luck out there. This definitely is not it. This is also for people who already have a website with some authority. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can't just be creating your website today.
Sites that have already got some authority, so you've already been around for a little while, you're kind of started to get established. What it really doesn't work for is for people that brand new and you just started a blog today, because what this technique relies upon is that there are some weaker competitors that you're going to go and do some research on. So if you are starting today, by default you are the weakest competitor. So this kind of technique won't work for you.
And it's also not for you if you're still kind of wanting to think of SEO as luck or an accident. You're watching this video because you're done throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what actually sticks. You're ready to do real, repeatable steps that actually work to rank your blog. Let's jump in.
We're not claiming to have reinvented keyword research, right? But what we wanted to do was have like some clearly defined and repeatable process that we knew would get consistent results for our customers. So, because when you're doing keyword research, it is quite flexible and fluid, and you can kind of go off in different angles. We wanted to be quite rigid with this because, when we've got a team of keyword researchers, we want to make sure that they're always going down the right route and getting consistent results for our customers. So, I'm going to take you through like this repeatable process, hopefully, so that you go ahead and then find good opportunities within whatever niche you write about on your blog.
So what exactly is tomb raiding? Let's explain the term in more depth.
This is the high-level step-by-step process that we go through for tomb raiding SEO. We find a big list of competitors. We calculate where you sit within that competitor landscape, so which sites are more authoritative than you and which sites are less authoritative than you. And then we'll raid, that's where it comes from, raid competitors for their best performing articles. And we'll correlate the content for those articles with the weakest competitor. They've already given a blueprint for how this article should be written and how it should be structured and the type of topics that you should include within this article, because they're ranking in Google, and that's why we've identified this as a good article to write. So if you're taking that topic, you should probably try and correlate the topics that you're talking about with that competitor as well.
Step number 1 is to analyze your competitors. You're trying to figure out who's like you, who's doing better than you, and who's doing worse than you. There is actually a scientific formula, and Mark was kind enough to share with me how he calculates a competitor analysis.
You can get these metrics from Ahrefs once you've signed up for your subscription, and you can get these other metrics from these other tools like just here. So that'll allow you to kind of get all of the numbers that you need. It's probably best if I just show you like the example as well. So, okay, once you've got, I'll show you the example. So once you've got like all of the metrics, this isn't for your website, by the way, Zuli. This is just a generic example. But we've pulled out a list of a bunch of different sites here. We've hidden the URLs just because it was a customer site, and then we've said, okay, we've added up all of these numbers that we've got from all of the different tools, and we've got a final number here at the end. And that number essentially then lets us say, okay, approximately that's like the authority of your site versus like competitors. And the reason that we used like a whole number of different metrics is because these metrics aren't super accurate. So just to spread to level it out a little bit, we just took metrics from a number of different places just to hopefully kind of give something that's like a little bit more accurate. So essentially, at the most simple level, you just add all of these up and you get a number at the end, and then you can kind of order your spreadsheet into those people that sit below you and those people that sit above you.
Step number 2 is to actually do that analysis, figure out who's better, figure out who's weaker, figure out who you have and where you stand in amongst the field. Number 3, figure out what their best performing posts are. Go onto their blog and see what's ranking, what's doing really well for a particular search term. And if they're weaker than you, try to do a blog post about the same search term because you stand a much better chance of ranking.
Once you've got your big list, then you can start kind of like doing that, rating your competitors for the best performing articles. It's a reasonable assumption that if these sites are weaker in terms of authority than you, then you should be able to rank for the articles that they're already ranking for. And what you find generally with most blogs is that, and you probably find this on yours, Zuli, right? That for 80% of your traffic probably comes from around 20% of your articles, and that's generally what you find. And I think what we've found from doing keyword research in this way is that a lot of the competitors here that you're looking at, you're trying to raid essentially their best articles. So you already can see what their 20% is. So you're taking all of those 20% from lots of different sites, and you actually end up with a better success rate than just kind of writing randomly on keywords that you found using keyword research tools, because they've already proven the fact that they're strong enough to rank for that, and you should do too. So this is why this ends up being quite a good method.
And step number 4, of course, is to do it better. Now, a lot of people think that this means longer, but it doesn't. It means better. This is because Google doesn't like the black sheep of the family. And what that means is if 10 people are doing something a particular way and they're ranking, you're not going to do better than them by doing it a different way to them. You should be replicating all of their sections, make sure that you're including all the info that they're including. The way you make it better is by including extra information. Go another step further, go one step deeper, do a little bit more research, do a little bit more analysis, and make sure that you're providing extra value for your reader. Make sure that they're glad that they clicked on you and not anybody else.
Once we've identified the articles, as I mentioned, they've already got the winning formula. They've already managed to rank. Don't try and reinvent the wheel with the article that you're writing. One of the things that some mistake that some people make is that, there's all these articles in here, there are 1,000 words, but I'm going to write one that's like 5,000 words, and then it's going to be better than everybody else's. The problem with that is that you essentially become like the black sheep of the search results. Like if Google sees that everyone else is writing 1,000 words and you've written 5,000 words, actually that's not a positive thing. That's a negative thing, because you actually stand out from the crowd. You're the black sheep. So you want to end up writing a similar number of articles and just correlating any of the content in there to the article.
Mark also recommends adding a 10% on length. So if a blog post is 1,000 words, you should be writing 1,100 words.
We do write about 10% extra just to be able to cover kind of more topics. So the idea being that actually our article is slightly more in depth than the article that we're kind of correlating against. And always a good way of doing that is you can write some FAQ content. So if you look in Google and look at that people also ask kind of box and find out what other people are asking on those topics, you can start adding a few of those to the bottom, and actually very quickly you can add an extra 10% to an article. And the good thing is that you might end up starting ranking for those questions, or you might start populating those people also ask boxes as well, and kind of getting traffic that way. So that's one way that if we can, we often look to kind of expand articles that we're writing.
And finally, I want to share a case study. So he actually did steps 1 through 3 for me, for my blog. I have to do step 4 on my own. But he looked at my blog, Zealy Writes, and figured out which posts were, or which sites were my competitors, which sites were doing better than me, which sites were doing worse, and which of the worst sites that were my competitors I could potentially beat for a blog post or several blog posts. So I plan to do this experiment, to follow these steps, create this content, and I'll report back how it works.
So you kind of, once we added kind of all of these metrics up, you kind of sit here amongst these competitors. It was actually quite difficult. Well, it was actually quite difficult to find competitors that kind of matched directly. It was actually quite time consuming. But also when we did find those competitors, they didn't necessarily have like lots and tons of articles on there that we could then go ahead and kind of tomb raiding. So the tomb raid, so the plan was hard to kind of pull together from both those angles. It wasn't the easiest niche to work with. This is where you sit. So ones that are a little bit higher than you, but all the ones that are kind of lower than you. But I've highlighted the ones based on what I know about your blog that I think probably would fit.
Now let's get into the FAQ section. Number 1, how long would it take somebody else to do this?
To get to here, you're probably looking at, for one of our team members to do it, like half to 3/4 of a day, maybe. But the more you put into it at the start, and the more competitors you find, the better results you're going to get, because you're going to find lots more articles and easier ones as well.
Number 2, what's a big mistake that beginners should watch out for when they do this strategy?
I guess the most common problem we see is that people expect a blog to happen quickly. They expect it to be something that's going to happen overnight, and they just end up giving up too soon. So they'll try for a few months, they go, oh, this isn't working, and then kind of give up. And that can kind of be really demoralizing. So I think just setting kind of people's expectations like up front, it's like this, you're in the long game for this. SEO isn't, and blogging isn't something for the short term. You're in the long game. It can be a great long game in the end, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Number 3, what do you do if it's not working? Can you tell if it's not working? Should you give up? Should you keep trying? What should you do?
There could be any number of issues. So depending if you set up the site, there could be the way that you structure the site, the way you're structuring your articles, indexing issues, the way you've done your keyword research. Maybe you thought you were getting it right, but maybe you haven't quite got it right. The quality of your content. I mean, what I'll say is that generally, when customers are starting with us, they'll bring their site to us, and we'll kind of take a look at it and then kind of make recommendations based on like what they're sharing with us. So we can kind of potentially spot some issues if there are issues kind of at that kind of stage. But yeah, if you're someone who doesn't know, it's quite hard. I'd say you probably just need someone to take a look over it and just either concur that this one's just struggling because it's just bad luck, or this one is struggling because you've maybe missed off a few things. And what with Google Eat, the Eat guidelines now, if you're familiar with those, experience, expertise, authority, and trust. So there's a very, I say, dry-ish. There's a massive document that Google have produced on that, but it's all about making sure that you're a real person and you're a real business. And there's lots of factors that should go into that. Now people that are writing blogs generally, especially ones that are doing it to make a living from, they're not necessarily the real person behind it or whatever, and they don't want to be the real person because they want to sell it, as we were talking about earlier. But also they don't do a lot of things that a real business would do. So maybe they don't put a privacy policy on their site. Maybe they don't have a real address associated with their website and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of things that Google is actually clamping down really hard on, and even more so now with AI content, to make sure that you're a real person. You've got a LinkedIn profile. You've kind of, you know, you really exist and you're a real business.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I had a great time interviewing Mark, and I can't wait to share the results of this Tomb Raiding SEO strategy with you in a couple of months. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.